to introduce Mr. Dave Cannon, who's going to entertain us this afternoon. Thank you, everybody.
I will begin this with 3 or 4 words of Hebrew, Shalom Rav, Yom Tov, which is what a person who was in Israel, and I knew a few words of Hebrew, only tourist Hebrew. And what it means is Shalom is peace. It's also used as hello and goodbye, Yom Tov, good day. Now then, this is my recollection of 50 years ago of living in Israel on a kibbutz. And what interested me before that to want to go to Israel, and the earliest recollection I can have was when I was doing English literature at school, and the first book of note was Oliver Twist. And who is the arch criminal there? Who is the godfather? It's Fagin. And the way he's predicted fitted the Victorian idea of a Jew. And this, on 12 or 13 at the time, and I thought, this isn't right. Why? But then it's schoolwork and one thing and another. We moved on a couple of years, or a year or so, and we didn't do Shakespeare. It was a secondary modern school, so Shakespeare was a bit above us, but the name Shylock came in, and he wants his pound of flesh. So we go from the 16th century to the 19th century, and Jews are cast in a bad light. And once again, it rankled me. So we go into my third book, 39 Steps, and John Buchan described Jews as a wizened old man in a wheelchair with eyes like a rattlesnake. Not very complimentary, but at the same time, he then described Germans as a prognathous or Westphalian with the manners of a hog. And it seemed to me that John Buchan didn't have regard to anyone unless he was a landowner gentry. So the seed is sown, even at that age, 12 or 13. It just annoyed me. I changed schools, and in my new classroom, there was a girl, Anne Richards, who was Jewish. Not that I knew that at the time, but she was a friend of my sister. And we got to know each other. And on occasion, I went down to her home address, and we're chatting away. And she's got an elder sister, and she's like, where is she? She's on a kibbutz in Israel. New word. Kibbutz. What's a kibbutz? Why is Israel? What do they do there? She said, well, it's an agricultural settlement, co-owned, and it's based on more or less, they're my words, not her words, what I've learned, on Marxist principles. Each gives according to his ability and receives according to their needs. But there's more to it than that, because a kibbutz is not just a community, it's also part and parcel of the fabric of Israeli society. Although only 2 or 3% of the population are kibbutzniks. They were the founding fathers of Israel, and the first kibbutz settled in 1909, Degania, south of Yam Kinneret, which is the Sea of Galilee, produced Moshe Dayan. If you remember the Six-Day War, he was the defense minister with the black eye patch and the crooked smile. So there's a lot of history in the kibbutz. Anyway, we move on, and I leave school, and I get an apprenticeship. And in 1967, it was a watershed. And in the Hebrew, Milchama Sheshet Yamim, the 6-Day War. And this wakened up to me. And there he was, 3.5 million Israelis against 80 million Arabs, as usual, chewing the fat over the land. And Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser, he was winding up the Arab nations of Egypt, Syria and Jordan to push the Jews into the sea. Well, he came unstuck, because on the 5th of June 1967, the Israeli Air Force made a preemptive strike, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, 80% of the Arab Air Force had been destroyed on the ground. The theory being, he who controls the air controls the battlefield. And on this occasion it worked. Then the infantry and the tanks rolled in, and within 6 days, Israel controlled Midbar HaSinai, the Sinai Desert, Ramat HaGolan, the Golan Heights, the West Bank, as it's known internationally, and Jerusalem, which was the jewel in the crown. Yerushalayim in Hebrew, Al-Quds in Arabic. And of course, Israel then was the toast of the nations. They were flavour of the month, not currently as we know in the news. But then that country had faced down 80 million people, 3.5 million Jews. And the West and America especially is great. The Soviets, who backed and supplied the Arab nations, Egypt, Syria and Jordan, they had their nose put out of joint, and the West moved in and gained a bit of purchase in the area. So I'm thinking, this is good, I enjoy this. But we move on again. That was what really triggered my imagination, my enthusiasm. In 1969, I left school, I left work, finished my apprenticeship, and I went on the road to Spain. Hitched it all the way to Spain, £50 in my pocket. I was away for 2 months. I was part of what was called the Hippie Trail, which in the 1960s went from California to Kathmandu and everywhere in between. And it was a popular thing to do. And of course, on the route was Israel. And what better than to stay for a month or two, put your feet up from travelling, and then move on. I had a different idea. It was my intention to go to Israel. And while I was there, I met people from all over the world, as you would expect. Rucksack, Youth Hostel Card, America, Western Europe, Scandinavia, down to Greece. Not Eastern Europe because the Iron Curtain was there. But in that time, I was introduced to an Israeli, and I expressed an interest. And he said, well, if you want to give it a chance, try it, but be prepared for a bit of a culture shock. It's a different way of life. 2 months later, I'm back in Birmingham, hometown, 3 and 6 in my pocket. Could you get it close to that? £50 and 3 and 6 in the pocket for the final bus journey. So within a week, I got back into printing my trade, and I'm wondering, how am I ever going to get to Israel? And just thinking about it. But as ever, fate lends a hand. At the time, I used to take the Sunday Times, principally for Parkinson's sports column. I wasn't so much interested in the columns and the influencers, bit of news, but Parkinson. But in the, I'm not used to one of these, by the way, excuse me, but in the classified ads, it had got Globetrotters, and it went, every week there'd be about 20, young man, 20, looking for like-minded to hitch around Europe, Scandinavia, North Africa or whatever. And then one of them, and I remember this, Holiday with a Difference. Kibbutz in Israel, minimum stay 1 month, age 18 to 35. I'm 23, 24. I fit the bill. I hadn't got a girlfriend, thank heavens, at the time. You know, I was a free agent, and I got this idea. Wrote to them, they wrote back, and offered me an interview. So about a month or so later in September, a lovely day like this, in September, with my mother, went down to London, to Lower Regent Street, the Jewish agency, for £2.50, second-class day return to London. Imagine that. How much does it cost to get to Bridgend from here? Precisely. So me and my mother had the day in London, the morning, Oxford Street, Regent Street, Carnaby Street, Piccadilly Circus, 2 o'clock, the appointed hour, down to the Jewish agency. And then I came to the first ever high-tech security, an answer phone on the door. I mean, it's common now, isn't it? But then it was, and there's a, press the button, there's a buzz and a click, and it comes this, yes, no more than that. Explain, I've got an interview. 1 moment, there's a buzz and a click, the door opens, and we go into a vestibule as big as the telephone kiosk. No bit of that. Waiting again, a buzz and a click, and we're into the foyer, and the Court of Commissionaires is there to welcome us. Yes, what can we do? I said, explained. Upstairs, to see Mr. Nathan Rom. Remember that name, the first Israeli, or the second Israeli I'd met him. And he was archetypal Israeli of that time. He was my height, sallow complexion, cotton jacket, open neck shirt, Cheetos and loafers, archetypal. Oh, then he proceeds to ask the 5 WH questions: who, what, where, how, where, why, and all the rest of it. Satisfied that criteria. My mother's with me, And he looked at her and she said, oh, you've got family backing, so that's important. And what you want to do, it's been corroborated, and your nearest and dearest they agree, but they're twitching at Israel. It's a bit of a hairy place to be. Always has been, always will be. We'll let you know. And I said, thanks very much. So we go home. How did it go? Well, we'll have to wait and see. A few weeks later, a letter from the post, I have been awarded a place on an Ulpan, which I'll explain later, at Kibbutz Mishmar HaEmek. What does that mean, Mishmar HaEmek? I will explain. In Hebrew, Mishmar is guard or guardian. Emek is valley. So it is the guardian of the Valley of Israel, which runs from... those who've read the Bible recently or at school may remember the name Valley of Jezreel. The same place, Emek Israel, Valley of Israel, and it runs from Har Carmel in the northwest to the Jordan Valley in the southeast, which is also called the Bet Shan Valley. And then I said, so I've got the maps out and I'll find out where it is roughly. So wrote back, thank you for the kind invitation, I accept. They write to me again, said, we have your reply, and if you want to take it up, please send £40 to cover cost of travel from London to Israel. Now, £40 was more than 2 weeks' salary at the time, but then it's a chance of a lifetime. It was before plastic, before phones. I hadn't got a checkbook then in those days, so it was a good old-fashioned postal order plus poundage. Came back a few days later. You have been booked onto a trip from London to Haifa, £40. Travel only, you've got to pay for your own food and all the rest of it. Well, that's all right. So, and that would be in May 1970, a long time ago. It's amazing I can remember this, but it's a life experience. So, down to London on that weekend, and go to one of the London stations, Paddington or Euston. That little detail escapes me. And meet up on the station, a knot of people, and on the appointed station. That looks promising. So I spoke to them. I said, are you going to Israel? We are. And we're all my age group between, say, 18, 25. And this is in the days before the idea of everyone goes to university. So there were some university buds there, blokes like me who'd finished an apprenticeship and others who just wanted to do a bit of travelling. So what did we do? So check in with the person there with the clipboard, got your letter. And I said, what do we do now? And what we did was we went from London to Dover, Calais, Calais, Paris, then overnight to Venice on the train. So 6 o'clock the following morning, we're in Venice. Bleary-eyed, hadn't slept for 24 hours virtually, but we're all, like I said, 18, 24. It's a new adventure. We're full of energy. We know we think we know what we're doing, because we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. And we're taken to the ship, which was a small cruise liner that plied its trade down the Adriatic and into the Ionian Sea, through the Corinth Canal and into Athens, and then through the Med and onto Haifa. And after 7 days of going all the way down that route and stopping off like all cruises, overnight sea, a day in a town, and hip-hopping all the way down. The highlight then was a weekend in Athens, because that was the jewel in the crown on that particular trip. But that was on the Saturday, Sunday, and on the Monday disembark in Haifa, which is a port city in northern Israel. And we get there, and looking out and looking at the sea, look north, look towards the Lebanon, lost in the haze, look south, down to the Negev Desert and Gaza and Egypt beyond. You couldn't see that, but that's the way the panorama was. Step outside into the main street, and the first thing I saw was every second man, youth, who's 18 to 20, is in green combat uniform, carrying an Uzi submachine gun or a rifle. Now, unless you go to an army town, it's not our particular things that we don't do. We don't have soldiers on the streets like that. But Israel was still at war. It signed a ceasefire, but not an armistice with any of those three nations. But you see, it's amazing. After 20 minutes, it becomes the norm. You just get on with it. The other good thing was every street sign was in Hebrew, Arabic and English. And this would be a hangover from the mandate period of 22 to 1948. So it wasn't too bad to find our way where the bus station was. And it would be think about in Arabic, Hebrew and English, bus station, like that. So we go there, and I'm in line with a queue, and this guy in front of me says, Yerushalayim. I thought, what's that? And then it struck me, can only be Jerusalem. And I've got that. So I've got two words, Shalom and Jerusalem. And then and I was very impressed because so many people there of my parents' age spoke English because they'd had a lot to do with the British troops there. Some were Holocaust survivors and learned English. Some had just picked up English because it was one of the things to do is learn English. And I said, Mishma Hayemek, Kibbutz, yeah, that's right. Bus stand over there, number 10, number 12, whatever it was. When? About an hour. Okay, right so. And so I wait, and I've got a rucksack and a shoulder bag, hand luggage, and I wait onto the bus. Mishma, and the driver speaks English. Okay, but yeah, hello. Tell me when you're there. I'll let you know. 40 minutes later, we're on the main road, and there's a drive up there, and there's a 100-metre palm tree lined entrance to the kibbutz. I thought I'll have a bit of this. This is nice. So I'm walking up there. Now I think I'll show a few pictures if this comes to life. I've not used one of these before, so bear with me. Hope he's on. And break the back off already. Oh, there we are. Ah, here we have the Western Wall, which you can see, and that's the wall itself. And down there, that was an excavation that went underneath the foundations and into the Temple Mount. And the Temple Mount is sacred to Jews and Christians and Muslims. And the Muslims don't like it much because it's still Israel has this, but the other side is Islamic. It's the Dome of the Rock. Now then, these photographs are just photographs taken. They're not done chronologically or to tell the story. And this, I think, is the Valley of Kidron. As you can see, the valley goes down there and into the Judean hills. This was my accommodation, called Srifim. My first accommodation was better, but I moved from the Ulpan over 3 months to become what was called a mitnadev, a volunteer. And if the Ulpanics who were learning Hebrew were down there, the volunteers were a bit lower. But that was all right. Like I'll keep coming back to this. We're young. It's an adventure. We don't mind, do we? We're getting on with it. Oh, hang on. Who is this? This is me in 1970. The best photograph I've ever had, I think. But there you go. This is Rona, a good friend at the time, not seen for 50 years. She's from Montreal, Canadian. Next one. And this is Ariella, who I met later when I was on the road again in 1973. And I stayed with her family, which was a different experience living with an Israeli family as to be on a kibbutz. Not seen her for 50 years. She'd be a mother, grandmother, and all the rest of it now, I hope. And this is me in the middle of the winter. The sky is pretty good. And what we have here is alfalfa. And alfalfa was grown on fields as big as 4 football fields to feed the cows in what's called the refet. And they were a dairy herd, not beef. This is another valley from another picture from Jerusalem, looking down the valley of Kidron or Hinnom, and once again lost in the Judean hills around there. This is the winter, and this is what we were required to do: cut the alfalfa and then load it onto a truck like this. This looks quite easy, and you think, oh, it's only hay or straw, but this is the middle of winter and this is wet. And each one is 40 or 50 pounds a throw. And you need to load that. And there was a crew of 3 of us doing it. So it's a good morning's work, a good workout. This is Steve. Although you would never know it, would it? But there you go. So that was some of the winter work that we did. This is coming to pieces, excuse me. So, anyway, that's a bit of a break of the work we did in the winter. And just to show you, this is the Emek. And looking down, that's the hills of Lower Galilee, and a bit out of shot of there would be Nazareth, just there. So we're on the floor of the valley there, and the kibbutz is on the side, and then you have Lower Galilee over there, and then you go to the upper Galilee and towards the Lebanese border. So now, I'm Israel, I get to the kibbutz, and this is where it all starts to go a little bit, I'd say wrong, pear-shaped. I go up there, and they said, and I'm looking lost, and someone goes, do you want something? Yeah, yes, I'm on the Ulpan. Ah, yes, you need to speak to Leslie. So Leslie comes along. First thing is, hello, you're too early, you can't stay here. I said, I've been on the road for a week. What do you mean? She said, I've got it here. She said, that's London, this is here. The Ulpan, the current scheme, ends tomorrow. You can stay one night, then you've got to go for a week. Where to? She said, go travelling. She said, this is Israel. There's a world of history there if you want. So I stayed one night, and I was introduced to 2 brothers, Morris and Bernard. And on those days, and perhaps now, if you on the kibbutz, you were given a Hebrew name. And Morris was called Moshe, which is Moses, and his brother Bernard took the name of Dov. Tragic in one situation, I'll explain, and disastrous for the other, at the other extreme. However, I've had breakfast, and I'm told, there's the bus station, get off at Megiddo Junction. I said, Megiddo, I said, then it's a crossroads, and then turn right to Tel Aviv. Righto. Megiddo Junction is on the top end of the plain of Megiddo. And some of you will know this. Megiddo, the plain of Megiddo, is where the last battle of the world between the forces of good and evil will take place. In those days, it was the Soviets and the West. And it was all going to come to a point in 1975. I had this from a born-again Christian who I roomed with, who believed in it A to Z. However, and they said that's where Armageddon comes from. Anyway, I then go to Tel Aviv, and I'm on I change buses, and I get dropped off at the Jaffa Gate. So I'm off to Jaffa Gate, but it's 3:30 in the afternoon. I need a bed for the night. I've got my trusty YHA book, and as I said, lots of people there speak English. Where is the local youth hostel? Bus ride, get off so-and-so, right there. So I go to the youth hostel, book in, there are no beds tonight. Second time, no place at the inn. Righto. I said, what am I going to do? He said, the streets or the lawn? Make your own mind up. Oh, there's no arguing, the streets or the lawn. Okay, I'll have the lawn. And I'm complaining about spiders and scorpions and all the rest of it. And he said, not here. You have the scorpions in the desert, but not here. We're like, okay. Fortunately, there were some girls there. I'd say Americans, Europeans. And they said, oh, you can come into the women's dormitory if you like. There's 8 of us. There's 10, 15 cots there. You can have a bunk. I said, righto. I bunked down, and the warden comes in, doing a head count. What are you doing here? I said, I'm having out. And the women said, oh, yes, she can say it's okay. He said, no, this is 1970, remember, you know. He said, oh, no, he said, you're not having any of this. Out. I've told you, the streets or the lawn. So, all right, so at 10 o'clock at night, I'm in the grass, and it's not too bad, and it's still warm. It's the Middle East, it's May. At 4 o'clock in the morning, it's cold. The heat has left the earth, and the ground is rough, and I'm feeling a bit sore. But at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, the sun comes out, it's warm. Straight away down to the office at 9 o'clock. We are 2 nights, pay in advance. Right, I've got 2 nights there. Great. So breakfast sorted, and the usual YHA stuff. You have your breakfast, then you do a job. You do some washing up. You sweep the dormitories or something like that, straighten the beds, and then 20 minutes and down to the Jaffa Gate and straight into Jerusalem and make for the Western Wall, which is the nearest direct route. So I'm walking around like, and it's great and all the rest of it. And I'm thinking, I have a bit of this. This is doing me the world of good. It's where I want to be at my age of life, and it's ticking all the boxes. So I wander around there, and then where else? Oh yes, we go to the Dome of the Rock. Now, hopefully, this will come up. Not that one. Oh, that's Steve. He's an American. Not all Jews have dark hair and sallow complexions. Not all Jews are dark and sallow complexions. Some are like me, and some are very, very, very dark and swarthy. That's Steve again. That's Steve again. And this is where the members of the kibbutz live. That's the kind of housing they would have. And there's one thing. I've used the word member of a kibbutz. Members are called haverim, which means comrade or friend or member. And while we're here, we are all haverim of U3A, because we're all comrades, we're all members, and we're friends. Fingers crossed on that one. More of Jerusalem, which I don't recognise, but as you can see, there once again is the Western Wall, and just there. Oh, excuse me. And just there, just that bit, that's the Dome of the Golden Dome, the other side of the wall. This is a street scene in Jerusalem in 1970, probably in the Arab Quarter, looking at it. Here, to get into from the Western Wall onto the Temple Mount, you need to go through that gate. But it says, and it's not too clear there, but what it says in Hebrew, English and French is that observant Jews are forbidden to cross that line because it's sacred. It's not our property at the moment. Spiritually, yes, but we don't own it physically. And so no one would go there. But recently, some right-wingers, religious right-wingers, have said, I'm not having this. I am going to go to the Temple Mount. It means as much to me as anything else, as any part of Israel. Another street scene. These photographs are 50 years old. So they've not too bad considering. I've been locked away for best part of 50 years, get them out every 10 years, and Lawrence has brought them to life. Here we have the Western Wall again. That is the women's side. That is the men's side. And one of the interesting things about the Western Wall is, and you might know this, that people of all stripes, they go there with a message or a prayer, and put it in the cracks. And they say their prayer or good wishes or whatever it is. And then at night, the caretaker comes along with his wooden stick, digs them all out, puts them in the bin for tomorrow's load. So they don't stay there forever. I've done it myself. And just to show that not all miracles work, sometime later, I did the same kind of thing, and the family I took the message for, daughter had got cerebral palsy. And you think, oh, well, give them the strength to carry on with what you've got to do. Sometime later, after I come back, I found out the family had divorced. So not every prayer is answered, even with your best wishes and all the rest of it. That looks like the Al-Aqsa Mosque. David's Citadel, which was never explained to me other than it's outside the wall, it's called David's Citadel. The kibbutz, this is the dining room. And those are the gardens, manicured and all the rest of it. Quite a nice place to live. And Kibbutz Mishmah Emek is one of the richest in the country. It has not only agriculture, but it has a plastics factory, which is a big earner, and it is multinational. It had, don't know what it is now, but it had offices and factories across Europe. Certainly one in England at one time. Looking towards the Jaffa Gate, David Citadel, I think. More images of the Jaffa Gate. And that's it. That's the picture show at the moment. However, anyway, so I've done that little interlude, and then I'm at, and the first day I went to was the Dome with the Rock. The Al-Aqsa Mosque was off limits because in 1968 or thereabouts, Australian by the name of Rohan tried to set fire to the place, and the Muslim authorities, no visitors, no one could get near it. With the Dome with the Rock, you've seen pictures of it, and inside it is beautiful. You know, it is serene, it is calm, and we've probably all been to cathedrals in this country with the high voltage Norman ceilings. It's just the same. I'm not doing too well with this, am I? No, that's better. That's better. So, but to go there, so me and some others are hanging around, and then I will call them the religious police. And they said, "Go away! You can't come here," in broken English and anything. They said, "It's prayer time." Well, when can we come back? You can come back later. So they have their prayer, and then we're allowed to go inside. And we go in there. But first of all, you wash your hands and you take your shoes off so you don't tread the earth into there, so you're all barefoot. And what can I say? It's a place of worship, of veneration. And it's the Dome with the Rock, Mount Moriah, is where Abraham was tested by God to sacrifice Isaac. Speak to a Muslim and he will say it's Ishmael, the firstborn son to Abraham. And there's a bone of contention there of who was the firstborn. But anyone who knows the Old Testament well, or a bit, will know that story. So I've done that. I've done the Al-Aqsa Mosque, I've done the Western Wall, I've done the Dome of the Rock. Time to go home. Youth hostel. Think about the day. The following day, I'm in Jerusalem again, at Jaffa Gate, and I'm on the streets, and I get buttonholed by this very dapper gentleman who says, "I'll show you around," not realising he was an independent guide. But that was okay. But for a couple of hours, he explains to me, we go down the Via Dolorosa to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and when I got through there, you couldn't believe it. It was like a market. There was carpenters, there was joiners, there were plumbers, trying to keep the place. It's like a factory inside. We get away from the foyer, as it were, and we go around a couple of rooms, want of a better expression, up a winding staircase, and the column of which there were crosses all the way round. And he explained, this is where the crosses were made by the Crusaders, and they put their mark there as they went round there. So interesting. And there's a plaque on the wall where the Watland Daub has been taken away, and it shows a geological fault, like that, a strata. And he said, and I must emphasise this is what this guy said, this is the traditional place where when Christ died at 3 o'clock on Good Friday afternoon, there was an earthquake, and there it is. You believe it, you believe it. Or it's a geological fault. But if you believe it, and looking around, because I'm secular, I was there, I am now, and you could see some of the people, the pilgrims, shall we say, they were transfixed. Absolutely. That was it. They got them. We move on, and we go to the sepulchre itself, and there's a queue to get in there. And to get into this, which I did, to get in the sepulchre itself, the door is 4 foot, if that. It is 2.5 foot wide, and you have to bend. And suddenly you get into the grotto, and everything is polished rock, beautifully kept. Marble bed where Christ was laid. Well, obviously not. It was marble. If you go to biblical times. And everyone's there, and they're doing this and looking around, and some are crossing themselves and all the rest of it. And then it's time to leave because you're there for 20 seconds, a minute, absolute maximum. And by the exit, there is a guy standing there, a monk, and he's as big as Alan Wynne Jones, 6'5", 15, 16, 17 stone. And he's got his grey habit, a rope belt with a crucifix running down there, like all good monks do. Stands aside, and there is a pot full of money. So you know what's coming. That's right. It's free to get into the grotto, but you've got to pay to get out. But that was odd. And so I'm about to leave, then he just looks at me, points again, hand in pocket. So for 5 bob, as it would be at the time, I mean, it was cheap, wasn't it, really, think about it. And then I'm let out, as it were, into the foyer, and then it's time to say goodbye to the guide, who then informs me that it's usual to compensate the guide 10 bob, or what it happens to be, in Israeli lira at the time. So, yeah, precisely. Next thing, and I'm not on the Kibbutz yet, I'm just studying the first week, this is. But then I went to Yad Vashem. Yad is hand, Vashem is Yad Vashem, hand and name, and that is the Holocaust Memorial, the first one. And it really is a somber place, as you would expect. And there's, like a lot of museums, there are cases of uniforms, the awful, the SS uniforms that did the place, the grey and blue tunics the prisoners or victims wore. And not only were there just the Star of David, there were other designations, an inverted pink triangle, homosexual, a black one, a criminal, another device for a political prisoner, prisoners of war, because Auschwitz was not only a death camp, it was also a forced labour camp. So there are all these various designations of prisoner, categories, shall we say, and the Jews at the bottom, they didn't last very long, and they were made to work to death, as were prisoners of war, especially the Russians. They had a hard time. But one of the things, you just look at the place and you think the person that wore one of those uniforms, the inmate, the prisoner, the victim, and it's quite a somber place. And when we left, there was a shrine there, and there's about 6 or 8 eternal flames, and one for each of the death camps and a couple of other concentration camps. And there was Auschwitz, Belzec, Sobibor, Majdanek, Treblinka, Buchenwald, and Bergen-Belsen, which the Brits released. And you go there and you just, what can you say? You can't say anything, you just look and you think. So you go through that experience and into the light, into the fresh air. You've done it, but you've been there, and it is quite. If you got my attitude, it's enormous, and perhaps anybody else who thinks about it or hadn't even thought about it before. But then it's time on the next day to I've finished that day and I'm on the road again. This time to Eilat, youth hostel. Get to Eilat, right at the bottom of Israel, on the Sea of Gulf of Aqaba, which leads to the Red Sea. And we go to the youth hostel. Guess what? No room at the inn. Thank you very much. Where can I go? Why? The army have requisitioned this. All the bunks are taken. Where can I go? The trees. The tree. Yes. What's that? It's just down there by the water's edge. So I go to the trees, and it's a hippie camp. Nothing else for it. There's rucksacks and boots, and nothing else. And there's people there, and I said, "What do I do?" They said, "Pick a tree, put your rucksack down there, put your bedroll, and that's yours." He said, "But one thing, when you go to bed at night, put your boots inside your sleeping bag because they'll be nicked by the time the sun comes up," which I did, and my boots were never stolen. So for the next 2 days, I said, "What do you do for washing? We've got the sea. What do you go for the loo and that?" "Well, there's bushes over there." I mean, it was, yeah, precisely, yeah. And you think, well, I like this. So for 3 days, you're just living like that. It's enough for anybody. But one enterprising couple, they'd set up this field kitchen, which they did. Any Americans here? Yeah. Does the word grits mean anything to you? Yeah, that's right. It's like porridge, as I recall. Well, that's the stuff I had. It was like porridge with bits of black in it. Yeah, well, it was, but it filled the hole, but perhaps it was calories, but not much nutrition, you know. And then it was coffee. And then I'm with this other guy, and he said, we'll go downtown today. We're down to Elat and see what it's like. Walk into the first bar, and I've been in, as a police officer, I've been in some heavy places, but there's nothing like this place. And me and this guy, we look around and said, shall we drink up and go before he explodes? I think so. Quick, swift it. I went off, out of danger. And then that's Saturday. And then on Saturday at Israel, nothing moves. Absolutely. A Shabbat is dusk Friday till dusk Saturday. And this time of the year, it's what, 3:30 to 4:30. In the summer, this part of the world, it's perhaps 9 o'clock till 9 o'clock. So it's not Saturday, it's dusk till dusk. So I've done that. And Sunday, Israel comes to life again. I'm on the bus all the way up to Haifa. I know the ropes. I've got the bus to the kibbutz. I'm there. To use the word home, which he was for 10 months. So bunk in. Oh, you're here, are you? That's good. I see Dov and Moshe again. Have we got a bed for you? You got a place? Bunk in there. There's your rucksack. It's all been under lock and key. Everything's there. And the money that I'd had, which I kept in the money belt, that was in the safe with the kibbutz under lock and key, against signature. Right. So Monday comes, and this is important, perhaps, to understand. In Israel, there is not Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They have first, second, third, fourth, fifth day, and sixth day, which is Yom Rishon first, Yom Sheni second day, Yom Shlishi third day, Arba'i fourth day, Hamishi fifth day, and Yom Shishi Friday the sixth day. Shabbat is Shabbat. It's not Yom Shabbat, it's Shabbat. So we go through the week in the old biblical sense, first to the sixth, and it still pertains today. So on Yom, this would be Yom Sheni, the second day. We are meeting I mentioned the word Ulpan, and an Ulpan was for new immigrants. Now, I'm not Jewish. How I got involved in a Jewish Hebrew language class for new immigrants, I'll never know. But I must have made some kind of impression when I had that interview 6 months previously. And it was interesting because in this class of 20 people, we had people from America, Australia, Czechoslovakia, the Ukraine, Sweden. I think the one Brit was me, the French, Algerians. And guess what? The teacher, she's Romanian. And she's to teach Hebrew to all these various people whose first language is their home language, apart from, I would suggest, the Algerians, which was one time Algeria was part of a French possession, so they had some French as well. Yeah, but the rest of us, this is our first exposure to a second language. And then we are taught the words like hello, okay, it's international, shalom, it's international. And then we are taught ani, first person singular, and then atar, male singular, at, female singular, and then the plurals. And then there's them and they and those. And that's just to introduce yourself. And she says, stand up. And David, yes. And she said, in a bit broken English, but she didn't. But she said, who are you? And you have to say in front of it, I need David. Where from? Me, Anglia, from England. And then America, Ukraine. And so we're getting to an icebreaker, if you like. So we're doing this and doing the verbals. Then the books come out to read and write Hebrew. And Hebrew is written from right to left. So when you open a book, as we do, from right to left there, the book is back to front, and you open from left to right. So, and there are two forms of Hebrew. The written word called dafus, which is the square capitals, and biyad, yad is hand, in other words. And so we are taught to write, do the alphabet in Hebrew. And the alphabet in Hebrew is 22 letters. But to confuse things, 4 letters, M, N, P and F are the same, and Sadek are written differently if it was in the middle or the beginning of a word. It's called Safite, a final word. It's a finial. So you have to learn all this. And then the alphabet is called the Aleph Bet, which is the first letter of Hebrew is Aleph, the second letter is Bet. And we have an alphabet. Hebrew, it's Aleph Bet. but it gets confusing, and I won't bore you too much, but B is also V, depending where it is in the word and what you're using. Like the name Vicky, you would spell it with a B, but for that purpose, it would be a girl's name, Vicky, or Victoria. And then we have, there's two forms of writing T, for whatever. There's two forms of writing S, shin and sin. But there is a third form, letter Samek, which is always a soft S. It's unbelievable. And then there is kaf and chaf. Not to be confused with het, which is the drier sound, but we do have kuf, which is a hard K. And this goes on. And just to confuse me, not you, but the class as well, P and F is the same. You need to know what is P and what is F. But having said that, we use P and H, don't we, for telephone and elephant. So there's lots of anomalies in the language itself. So and over time we learn to write and hopefully read a bit and speak a bit. And I do mean a bit. It's tourist Hebrew, if you like. Who am I? How much? Kama zole. Kama, how much? And you say, your termidai, too much. Typical bargaining, as it were, you know. So you learn all this and how far. And the big thing is how much, too much. And then the bargaining comes in. But it was good. So, and the Ulpan for new immigrants, which was backed by the government, was 4 or 5 hours class work in the morning, 4 to 5 hours labour, use the expression work, in one of the services in the kitchen, picking fruit, laying irrigation pipes, and weeks 1 and 3. And in weeks 2 and 4, you would work in the morning and have classroom in the afternoon. So you have a good spread of how the kibbutz works throughout the day. It was a 6-day working week, Monday to say Sunday to Friday, we Shabbat off. But every 4th week or so, you would have to work Saturday because life doesn't stop. The kibbutz I was on was, so it was socialist. It wasn't strictly. They kept the high holidays, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, but by and large it was socialist. So there was a secular kibbutz. And the kibbutz, it's a business after all, and the work and the produce they make has to be sold to the open market. So we get through all that, and the accommodation. You've seen the Strifir I was in, and it wasn't too bad. It was warm. It was dry. It's going to be warm in the Middle East. It was dry. It was well ventilated, and I shared a room in the main with a Canadian, Ronnie, and a born-again Christian, John. I don't wish to say too much about Christians, but born-again Christians are, shall we say, hard work. Because he was a believer, believed A to Z. On the first day the earth was made, on the 7th day thou shalt rest, and he believed that throughout. There was no arguing. He's a true believer. And we had a few arguments when at 11 o'clock at night he gets his prayer mat out and starts praying, and we've got about 4:30 in the morning. Think of us. I'm saying my prayers. What can you do? I mean, it's his belief and all the rest of it. So we get through this, and then we get to know each other, and there are relationships formed between the young men and young women there. And occasionally, a young Israeli fellow would try and pull one of the girls from the Ulpan, you know, and that was good. But I never knew anyone in my position, male, would ever get together with the Israeli girl. It just wasn't done. You know, just didn't get the chance. And one of the things about Israel is they term themselves as sabras, and a sabra is a prickly pear. And the way they describe this is they're rough on the outside and soft and sweet in the middle, if you believe it. but that's a bit of a ploy, isn't it? You know, it's selling the country, selling the people. And there's plenty of people currently would not agree with that, as we all know by the situation. And so we start work, and work is, for me, first it was a kitchen porter. peeling potatoes, peeling carrots, washing floors and washing dishes for 700 people twice a day. And then you do that for 2 days, then you move on to something else. And on one occasion I was promoted. They said, "You're off the cups and saucers, great. Sirim." What's that? Sirim. Pots and pans. With all the burnt on fat and oil and all the rest of it. And you're up to here in hot or warm, greasy water, scrubbing away with a Brillo pad. But and we all had a taste of this. No one got away from it. Eventually, after about 6 weeks, you proved your worth in the kibbutz. You're let out into the sun. Because one of the things I thought, I want to be out in the sun. So I don't want to work in the kitchen. And so David, they said, you go to the Metayim. Metayim is orchard, fruit picking. Oh, thank God for that. Up at 4:30, down to the dining room at 5 o'clock, into a trailer pulled by a tractor for about a mile, into the orchards, and issued with a bag. And it was an unusual bag, not closed at the top, but closed at the bottom with a buckle. So you fill it up, and then when you filled your bag, you go to a crate and very carefully undo the buckle and lower the fruit. Don't drop it, because bruised fruit doesn't sell. So, and this is the lifeblood of the kibbutz, the produce. So we're all very careful. So we do that, and for a week or so, you're on the ground picking fruit, and somebody in the ladder above is dropping stuff on your head. Eventually, it's my turn to go on the ladder, and have my bit of fun, you know. So we'll be doing that, and then it's pears. Done the apples, it's time to do the pears. And a job came up in what's called the mispore. And the mispore was laying irrigation pipes for the alfalfa, which I showed with the pitchforks. And this was the mispore was about the size of 4 football fields, massive. And there were standpipes all the way down one side, and 20-foot, 3-inch, what can I say, like aluminium drain pipes with a male and female end, and a hook and eye on the top, where you push it in, pull it back, and the hook would go over the hook and eye, straighten it, and then you've done one complete row. 20 yards down the road, you do another lot, all the way across, all the way down one side, all the way up the other. This is half a day's work, 5 in the morning till 9 in the morning. Test all the water, the sprinklers are going, turn them off, because the watering is done 5 at night till 9 in 5 in the evening till 9 at night. Otherwise, the water will evaporate before it goes into the soil. So it's very well organised, and it's great when you've done all that work and you can see all these sprinklers. You know, it's rewarding in that respect, because for within 3 or 4 weeks, the alfalfa, which was about 10 inches, is suddenly up to your hip. You know, and then comes in the cutters, and that goes off to the ref, and the cattle are fed, and the cattle make the milk, and the milk is sold on. One of the downsides of that, occupational health, and anyone with a medical knowledge, have they heard of Weil's disease or Weil's disease? Yes. It's absorbed through the skin, rat and mouse urine, and it affects the liver and the spleen and the kidneys, and you become jaundiced. And after 6 weeks, I had a dose of this, and we went to bed one night. Great. Woke up the following morning. One of the symptoms is sudden onset. I woke up. I don't feel too well. Where'd you work? Mispore. And straight away down to the medical centre. And the kibbutz was well set up. It got its own GP that serviced other kibbutzim, and it had what they called hedrei cholim, sick rooms. Not a hospital, but if you got the flu or something like that, or you got this intestinal thing, then the GP would come and see you, make a diagnosis, and if you were okay, you had the pills, antibiotics, and he said you must drink about 2 gallons of fluid every day to wash your system, which I did. But at the end of a week, I'd lost nearly a stone. I mean, it ravages you. You know, it really is a hard condition. And when I got back, I was speaking to a GP. He said, soldiers in the First War got this from rats in trenches, and miners got it from rats down the mines. It wasn't unusual or unknown, but it's there all the time. Fortunately, the technology or the antibiotics were available to see me through. So we get over that and we're doing something else. And all the time we're doing the Hebrew as well. So half a day of this, half a day of that, and then swap around every other week. But the kibbutz was very good for the Ilpalniks. Every month they would take us on firstly a one-day trip, then a two-day trip, then a three-day trip round and about the Galilee area. All at their expense. I mean, it was quite an education to go to Safat and Nazareth and other places of interest, Caesarea, Tiberia, or Tiberias over here, Tiberia over there. So you can do all this. And also, one weekend a month, we were given 2 days off. But that is to say, finish work before lunch Friday and back sunset on Sunday. And then the easiest thing to do was to hitch a ride to the Nice location, catch a bus if you want to go there, and then spend the weekend doing what you wanted to do up to Akko, or Acre it's called, the old Crusader fort down there. And one of the things about hitching in Israel, this is international, hitching a ride. In Israel, no. I said, what does this mean? It means stop here. You do that, international, but no, Israel, it's going to be different. Another thing about Israel, it's different. If you wanted cafe, and you wanted cafe, you would be served black coffee. But if you wanted white coffee, it's cafe afuch. And that means upside down, because coffee is black, milk, it's upside down. So cafe afuch. Yeah? Another idiom that you will learn. Yeah. Another thing, and this was interesting, I'm working away one thing or another, and I'm chuntering away, and this guy, I think his name is Zvi. They're all called Zvi or Avi, or Binny or something, or Danny is a very popular name, Danny. And he said, David, yeah, he said, words like, he said, there is no swearing in Hebrew. I said, how'd you work that one out? He said, it is God's language. I said, so where does the swearing come from? From Arabic. Yeah, yes. It's nice. Yeah, well, you could be, I won't, Jeff knows, I won't, because when I was speaking to a soldier and I said, is this right? He said, what? And then he came up with something, and I won't say Hebrew or English because it's coarse, crude, offensive, profane, and to some people it would be blasphemous. So if you would like a private interview, I will let you know. 5 minutes, okay. Righto. So we're there, and we're going through this thing on the year. We have the work we did, the conversations we met, the people, the places I went to, and finally, I'm chatting away. I'm drawing this to a close now. I'm in conversation, and this is another little thing you wouldn't know unless you lived in the country. I'm chatting away, and I said, "Oh, I know Rachel, or Lydia, or Hannah." He said, "You can't say that, David. You know this woman." I said, "I do. I know who she is." He said, "You don't know her." I said, "I do." He says, "You've got it." He taps the side of his nose. I said, you mean? He said, "Yes, carnal knowledge." You don't know her, do you? I said, "Not to that extent. No. He said, "The expression we use in Israel is ani, first person singular, ani hikati. I'm acquainted with. I recognise her. I know who you mean, but you do not know her, do you? Otherwise, it's a tap on the door with a brother and a boyfriend, a husband, and a father, and you find out how well you know this particular woman. You know." So that was it. So picking up all these bits, these bits of information, these bits of interest, these bits of experience. After 10 months, it was time to leave, and I was starting to feel a bit homesick. We couldn't believe it, you know, but then go back home to Birmingham, for heaven's sake. And it's cold, wet, and it's windy, it's March. And when I landed, and the sky is grey, and I think, oh, I'm home. It is. But I had a hatful of memories and people had met you wouldn't met otherwise. And I still keep in touch with one particular family over there, Lydia Eisenberg. She's on the kibbutz. And after 54 years, we're still in contact. Email, the occasional letter. And the last contact I had with her was just after the 7th of November, October last year. And she said, oh, you'd never believe it. Well, we see the news, but we only see one side of the news. She said, northern Israel has been emptied, and we have 400 people from another kibbutz living with us. Not 40 or 400. And he said, and they are helping us, but they want to go home to their kibbutz where they can work because they're losing money. And there's friction there because we do it this way in our kibbutz. Why you do it that way? And it's the same kind of thing. It's not home. And so currently the whole of, well, I'd say from the lower Galilee down toward the Emek and perhaps a bit further is populated by internal displaced people. This does not take away anything from what's happening in Gaza, but that's another thing, isn't it? That's something entirely beyond this particular presentation. So I see I'm being I'm being cued to wind things up. So, but fair enough. It's that well. I've been at it for the best part of an hour. So there we go. So that was my experience, and I've got loads more in there. But and this is the third time I've done this one, and every time I do it, something else comes to mind. Like when I was stuck in the desert, went to the desert for the week and all that. But perhaps another time. But thank you very much for listening. And if there's any Q&A, but if you've got anything, I'll do my best to field these questions. Thank you.